beauty and suffering. For this one, I'll use Model 3. And it's hard to pinpoint a good place to start because ideally these would kind of link together in a donut-like shape. And it just so happens that it looks kind of like a sperm cell or eyeball or womb. But that's kind of a cool coincidence. So here's a better drawing of how I imagine Model 3 interconnects with itself. That it sort of looks like a Klein bottle. And you can see here, these are asymptotes that I drew. And there's a channel, the ridge of the coin, that would take you through from world to world, simulation to simulation. Here's a bigger version of them making up the macrocosm. Anyway, I guess I'll start off with the ridge of the coin, which is represented by this gray string here, the stable chaos in which most of humanity exists, and I'll call this hell. So in this place, there's suffering, but it's not enough to propel us into the abyss or to the outskirts of understanding. But through science and art, we can work our way deeper into the abyss through destructive means, sort of like a contractile force, or through science, through logical, expansive means, and build out a web of knowledge that creates the entire human understanding, or the big picture. There's unimaginable suffering in the world. And the whole process of making art and discovering science is a toil. It's full of misunderstanding. But once you reach the point where you can take that leap of faith into the unknown and you see the big picture, you see the human condition for what it is. It's beautiful. So for artists, as we enter the abyss, we capture the beauty and suffering. It's very common. And there arises the stereotype of the tortured artist because it's sort of a highway to hell, to beauty, to making art. And then from there, you can get lost in the chaos of love and hate. But the deeper you go into art, the more rich and fulfilling it is. But you can become mad. It's like getting tangled up in a knot. But if by chance you persevere, you can make it to the firmament, which I consider this whole mechanism to be sort of like Gabriel's horn, where the volume is finite, but the surface area is infinite. So within this black hole, as you might say, imagine there are more coins within here that are spinning, and supposing you encounter the reflective side, you can be reflected out to the outskirts of understanding and get a bigger picture of the human condition. Or supposing you encounter the dark side of the coin, you can get trapped and lost and believe that there's nothing, or life is deprived of meaning. And while it's not completely useless, the payoff is less and less. Or if you're really lucky, you could end up on the ridge of the coin within the abyss, which kind of plays into, as far as I understand, Nietzsche's idea that if you gaze into the abyss gazes back into you, in the sense that it's all the macrocosm, microcosm, and this just is a shortcut to that realization. Through science, if you go through logical understanding and make these connections, it kind of acts like a web, because I find it hard to conceive that science is like a brick wall. It seems more like a fishing net where you can strengthen the connections between two understandings, but nonetheless it's all relative and flexible because everything is subject to change. And then those on the cutting edge of their field, developing new ideas and new understandings, are again embarking on the unknown. And at this point along this ridge, you have to take a leap into uncertainty, into the abstract, the unknown. And if you don't, like the myth of Sisyphus, you'll fall back down into the hell that you came from and then do it all over again. Now, this cyclical mode of living we're experiencing all the time, it's not just career-oriented. Any act of suffering, this is an abstract rendition of what's happening. You can either break through or you can repeat. But say that you do enter the realm of the unknown, there's not much to guide you besides faith and will for whatever you're searching for. And supposing you lose faith or will, then you'll return back. You'll experience the great fall. Sometimes I consider this to be like the Garden of Eden, in the sense that all the beautiful ideas that we're allured by, like what is beauty, what is love, those sorts of things, they exist here because they're not clearly defined. How could you define love or beauty mathematically, scientifically, or artistically? It's all subjective. I believe that religion and philosophy, they're the closest thing we have to roadmaps of the unknown and the abstract, but they really just serve as fuel and inspiration to keep us afloat and to keep that will and faith alive, to keep searching, to keep living. But you can know as much about philosophy or religion as you want to and adhere to it, but that doesn't make you philosophical, it doesn't make you religious. You have to believe. And in that way, religious teachers and philosophers, they're just retelling their own experiences of how they got through the desert. But everyone has to find their own way. Now, as humans, we are all so similar that the progression to truth, the progression to a unity is pretty similar, and that's how we've kind of come up with these world religions. But it's the individual faith, the individual fearlessness of traversing the unknown, which will take you beyond to the breakthrough point, if you'll call it. Now again, this doesn't only apply to science, art, religion, and philosophy, any sort of passion or drive for a goal, say, exists here at this line of meaning. It's not about the achievement or the end goal. In the same way that searching for God may take you to God, but it's not an ecstasy upon touching it. The ecstasy comes from being infinitely close.